decades, the bird flu outbreaks have affected poultry systems around the globe. Commonly called an avian influenza, it's a highly contagious viral disease caused by influenza type A viruses, mainly targeting chickens and turkeys. Various birds excrete while flying, thus providing a gateway of air transmission of the flu. Ducks and geese are central players in the ecology of this virus, who also migrate long distances, further accelerating the spread to terrestrial birds. The movement of infected poultry and migratory birds and an illegal bird trade are believed to be the causes of the spread. So what are the two strains of this flu? Namely, there are two strains. First is the H5N1 strain, one that causes a severe respiratory disease in birds. Human transmission is occasional, but it was in 1997 where humans contracted the flu following an outbreak in Hong Kong. 6 out of 18 died of the disease. According to the WHO, the mortality rate is around 60% when people get infected. The WHO also believes to have found no evidence of this strain to spread through prepared and cooked poultry food. The second strain is named as H5N8. It is a subtype of H5N1. This is highly lethal to wild birds and poultry, one of the less pathogenic type for humans, and poses only a low risk to people. Several states in India have sounded an alert to contain the H5N8 strain of bird flu and sent samples for testing. 12 epicenters have been identified in Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh and Kerala.
देखिए, एवियन इन्फ्लुएंजा के करीब 5 स्टेट से रिपोर्ट हो चुका है। 1-2 जगह और शायद वो है, चूंकि प्रदेश सरकारों से 5 सरकारों से हमारे पास रिपोर्ट आ चुकी है। हिमाचल, हरियाणा, राजस्थान, मध्य प्रदेश और केरला से ये रिपोर्ट आ चुकी है। और इसमें अभी तक की एक तरह से कह सकते हैं हरियाणा से रिपोर्ट है, पोल्ट्री में फैल रही है, नहीं तो वाइल्ड जो बर्ड्स हैं उनमें है, या आप कह सकते हैं माइग्रेटरी बर्ड्स जो बाहर से आती हैं उनमें है।
Meanwhile, the centre has taken note of the spread and asked states to constitute state-level monitoring committees to monitor the flu. State veterinary departments in collection of samples of migratory birds, dead birds, should be handled with utmost caution and scientific supervision. Surveillance should not be restricted to the protected areas alone, but to all wetlands and habitats that host migratory birds.
In कोई भी पोल्ट्री फार्म में अभी हमने रैंडम चेक करने के निर्देश दिए, ये बीमारी नहीं है। केरल सहित दक्षिण के राज्यों में मुर्गा मुर्गियों में भी ये लक्षण पाए गए, तो वहां से 10 दिन के लिए हमने तय किया है कि जो मुर्गा मुर्गी आते हैं उस पर आने पर हम रोक लगाएंगे।
So are eggs, chicken safe to eat amid the bird flu? According to the World Health Organization, chicken and other poultry are safe to eat if cooked properly. However, no birds from flocks with disease should enter the food chain. The WHO recommends cooking of poultry at or above 70 degrees Celsius throughout the product so that absolutely no meat remains raw or red. The WHO also believes to have found no evidence of consumers being exposed to the virus via the handling or consumption of poultry or poultry products. Dimple Sharma with Mubina Kapasi for ET Now.
Well, if you haven't had enough of pandemics, here's something else to worry about: the outbreak of bird flu. We have been seeing certain states in India starting to report rising cases of bird flu. All of this at a time when many of us, meat eaters, chicken eaters, seafood eaters, have not been comfortable going to brick and mortar shops, to our butchers, but have been buying poultry, seafood, eggs, all of that online. The lockdown, of course, had accelerated digitization. So what is all of this going to mean now? How safe is the poultry that you're going to consume? How will you know that where you're buying poultry from is safe, especially in the online world? I'm going to be discussing that and more with Fresh to Home, the co-founder Shaan, joining us right here on this edition of Startup Central. Shaan, thank you so much for joining us. The last time I interviewed you was after Fresh to Home broke all records to raise the largest amount of money in a Series C fundraise. There was $121 million. It's not been very long, if my memory serves me right, it's been less than 2 months. Now you have a bird flu problem to tackle with. You've seen your consumer base only grow in 2020. How are you ensuring that the poultry that you're selling on your marketplace is indeed safe?
Thank you, Nayantara, for having me. I think the first thing to clarify is that there is no evidence today of any commercial poultry being affected, right? The known incidence today is about wild geese and other migratory birds, particularly ducks in Kerala, being affected by a subtype of avian flu called as H5N8. And then in Rajasthan and in Himachal with H1N1, right? H5N8 in particular is not zoonotic, or it doesn't transfer from human beings to human beings. So while this news is hard to make out, but no commercial poultry or chicken has ever been affected in this last 2 weeks or so since the news emerged. And then now India's emergency response, right, to such threats is quite well oiled, particularly because of COVID, right? We've got really used to it. And the standard protocol is to do stamping or culling of any domestic and wild birds, including poultry or domestic poultry, in a 1 kilometer radius of any affected attacks. So because of that, it might seem like there may be chicken that is culled, but there's been no official confirmation, right? And then secondly, if you look at players like us or any organized player, particularly from the online world or from the organized trade, commercial farming is done with extreme security, right? The first is really all about biosecurity, which means that you physically separate out the cages or the environmental controlled sheds where the birds are grown, the chicken is grown, right? So there's no contact or cross-contamination with any migratory birds or any human beings or any animals that isn't in touch with the migratory birds. So it's very important.
Shaan, if you would just allow me to interrupt you there. I understand the points that you're making, but I want our viewers to also get to the bottom of this to be able to understand. It's a question all of us are asking, right? Is it safe for me to eat my eggs? Is it safe for me to eat my chicken? Where should I be buying my poultry? All of that. Now, even as we speak and we are interviewing you, the Madhya Pradesh government, for example, has banned chicken trade with southern states. So when you start seeing news come out from there, such news come out, yes, there is one fact that there is no official declaration of a commercial bird flu and all of that. But you are seeing responses coming out from various state governments, which brings me back to my initial question. How do I know the poultry I'm buying is indeed safe?
Yeah, so the reason why we've taken certain measures is just as a precaution. But in particularly if you buy from Fresh to Home or any other online player, the one is, all the chicken that is being sold is from areas where there is no current, even sort of a single rumor on where there is a bird flu. Secondly, if you look at commercial poultry, right, it's very different from locally grown poultry. Commercially poultry is all biofenced, so there is very high biosecurity there. There is daily health checks and proper vaccination in all these facilities. There is proper training for handlers. There is no cross-contamination on breeding. And the other one, Nayantara, is about post-mortem or anti-mortem checks, right? There is always checks that happens. For example, we check for 120 different parameters, and one of them is viral outbreaks, right? And the other one is to make sure that there is such certification then made available to the end user. It's very unique about us. But if you go down to the site, you can actually download those certifications. But entire modern trade, and particularly the poultry industry, is very good about handling commercial poultry. And that's really the big thing into your viewers' mind, is to put their minds at ease. Because the last time this happened, right, in February 2020, there was a rumor that COVID was actually was causing contamination of poultry and leading to human beings getting COVID through poultry. It was a rumor created by some miscreants, but it led to a huge issue for thousands of farmers, right? They had to cull their birds and their livelihoods were affected. So my request is for the public to be aware that there is no commercial poultry issue. There's not even one case that has been cited. And everything from a commercial player will be 100% secure from a biosecurity standpoint and also from a certification standpoint. And you should buy your poultry from organized players, particularly if you look at players like us. The certification is there out for you to see. So that's at a high level.
No, but Shaan, Shaan, if I could just interrupt you there and come in, let's go into this a bit more as far as certification and just knowing about the safety angle, all of that, especially during COVID-19 when many people are still not going out and buying their own food, they're buying it online. So I want to focus a bit on that, also from your perspective. Whether it's fresh to home or your competitors, let's say whether it's Alicious or those in the organized market like Venky's, because you're all in the same industry and it impacts us all, right? What kind of checks and balances exist for you to be procuring safe poultry to sell online?
So it all starts with knowing the source, right? So we know the contract farming process end to end, right? So the layer birds, the breeders, everything is actually controlled by us directly or indirectly. And in that process, there are very high safety protocols. And this is something that's very hard to do when you're doing naturally reared poultry, which may come into contact with a migratory bird, right? So that's really the first of it. And with COVID in particular, there's been a shift from offline to online. So more and more are moving into online or organized behavior. That's a good thing. It actually gives you better safety because there is certification for the products. There is audits. There is all kinds of modern ways of how commercial poultry is done. And that should be the primary security that puts your mind at ease. And Ananta, I don't know if you've noticed, but with the advent of the holidays and in January, we've seen a surge in poultry, particularly because it's a winter month and barbecues are very popular. There's been a huge demand uprise, and hopefully all the rumors will not, or wherever the current developments are, will not mitigate it. But so far, it's been very good for the Indian poultry industry.
You've explained me the processes a bit, but now just to understand what's at stake, and like you said, you saw rumor mongering about a year ago, right? During the lockdown in 2020, your user base grew like it did for a lot of online sellers. How much did it grow? And since all of these outbreaks of bird flu fears and all of that has come out, have you seen a dip in orders?
Actually, it's been the reverse. We've been fortunate, and I'm almost embarrassed to admit this because COVID has been such a big pandemic, right? We've grown quite drastically. And what that has led is two things. One, we've been able to give a safe way for the farmers and the fishermen to sell their products because COVID also resulted in disruption of the supply chains. And that supply chain is really what we've been able to reinstitute. So we've got happy farmers and fishermen who now are able to realize the full value or higher price than what they would get, and in a safe manner. From the consumer standpoint, it's also been really good because they can be putting their minds at ease because of all the sanitations, the 120 checks that we do. So we've grown about 4.5 times, and COVID has been a tremendous tailwind for us. And that tailwind has led to consumers being safe, the farmers and the fishermen and the producers being able to sell their produce without any supply chain disruption. So it's been a good time overall from an organized, bringing what is an unorganized marketplace into an organized, hygienic behavior.
No, I understand also the market size potential is almost $10 billion and all of that. But I want to understand from you that in the last week, couple of days, have you started seeing a dip in orders for poultry especially?
We have not. We have actually seen only growth, and the growth has been quite drastic. We've actually seen, particularly on the eve of the new year, we've seen particularly marinated, ready-to-cook products in poultry having around 450% growth because we just did that stat. And so we've only seen growth. We have not seen a dip in spite of all the rumors that's been floating around.
Eggs, what about eggs? Are you seeing eggs still sell the same way it was maybe, let's say, 20 days ago now?
So we have a platform called FTH Daily where we sell the eggs, and we have not seen any dips. We are primarily operating only in Bangalore and in Hyderabad and Pune with this platform. And we've seen only growth there. But it's too early also. And then, in February, when we had a very mass rumor, we had seen that organized players and particularly online players had not seen as drastic as a dip as the wet markets. So we are hoping that, it does not affect, because this will affect livelihoods of people, right? When you have false rumors. So far, we have not seen any impact. And we've only seen growth, particularly in the first week of January.
So, when you get news also coming out, like I gave of this example of Madhya Pradesh not wanting to trade any poultry with the southern states, all of that, what does that mean for your business, for logistics, and all of that? I'm sure platforms like yours, Licious, Venky's and all are always very, very careful when it comes to quality and safety and all of that. But now, during all these fears, are you double downing on the processes?
Yeah, so we've got basically an entire team of R&D scientists, particularly in our business. And they do a huge amount of things, from doing ante-mortem and post-mortem checks, making sure that there is audit processes down to the layer bird and the day-old chicks, right? So this is actually a very difficult thing to manage, right? Because you're talking about huge amounts of birds and operations. And having and putting in place that protocol is very important. We work very closely with the government. We work with the Central Poultry Department in Bangalore, for example. We've worked with the Disease Control Department. So there's a fair amount of government synergy as well. And overall, this is not the first time that India has actually led with something like this, right? Migratory birds are a very common phenomena between October to January. And with migratory birds, some amount of seasonal flu, whether it's H1N1 or any other normal flu, is very common among animals. And India is very prepared to do that. Particularly the organized trade and the modern trade, because of the certifications and the quality and the safety procedures, are well versed to handle this. And the very early thing that you do is you err on the side of caution. So if there is any sort of such infection, then you start with stopping any sort of procurement from that area, figuring out alternate places to procure from. For example, to give you an example, in Kerala, the poultry that we supply is from Bangalore. It's from Karnataka, where at this point of time, there is no reports whatsoever. And so those are the safety checks that we put in place.
In the last few days, have you had to maybe change your suppliers? Have you done that? It's always good to know, right? For all your consumers as well, or those that want to come on the platform.
Now, our contract farming, the farmers on the platform are all from, at this point, there's been no changes, because it's already from a biosecure area where there's been no reports of any kind of bird flu, right? So, and as I started out, there's no reports so far of any kind of confirmed reports of commercial poultry being affected. So there's been no changes for us. But we do have redundancy. So we have, over sort of 20,000 birds every day that is being processed by our platform. And hence we have tremendous redundancy built in. So like I just told you about Kerala, we've got alternate sources and so on. So it's not something that we think will be a large thing. And we urge folks to, be careful about where to buy from. And as long as you're taking all the precautions and it's from a person who understands the sources, I don't think there is any question of safety at this time.
With that, Shaan, I'd like to thank you for being so candid, for joining us here on this edition of the Startup Central, and for demystifying a lot of myths that are out there thanks to the new bird flu scare.
Thank you, Nayantara. And remember, no issues in any commercial poultry so far.